meeting recorded and put on the website, the project's website, and it will be part of the record. And anyone who hasn't been able to attend can view it and hear about what we're talking about tonight. And if you guys have any questions about it, you can also refer back to it. But my name is Andrew Maximus. I'm the Mobility and Traffic Engineering Manager for the City of Culver City in the Public Works Department. And you are all here to hear about this project that we have that is really your project. And I'll explain to you where we're at with the project, how it got here, and our next steps. Yes, please wait folks in. And also our, this one? I don't know, we're not going. We have folks from our consultant team, Emily and Sarah, sorry, and Lindsay are here from Gibson Transportation, who we hired through the RFP process to do all the data collection, help us with the analysis, assist us with the community meetings, and help all of us on this side of the table shepherd you all through the process to make the changes that everyone's been asking for a long time. So really quick, I know it's going to be part of the slides, but I've been with the city for about 3.5 years, and I've known about the Rancho Higuera neighborhood's concerns, and I've been talking with many of you and board members, and talked to you online via your board meetings to hear and understand, and also to let you know what we're doing. So from the way I've heard it from my predecessors is that there was a phase 1 study, and I shared the phase 1 study with the board members. And if you'd like a copy of it, it'll be available on the project's website, which the project website was on the link in the community notice, if you didn't get the community notice. And also, if you have your email here, we'll send you a copy or a link to the project webpage. The phase 1 study had lots of different recommendations, some of which were implemented, some of which were not. Some of them were implemented more in a kind of what we call a quick build fashion. One, because they're cheaper, and two, because we wanted to kind of put it in and see what happens with it, right? So the thought was, let's put it in. Maybe we're not sure if we want it. Maybe we're not sure if we want to spend the money on the concrete part of it. But let's see if maybe this circle or this bulb out or this crosswalk or whatever, turn restriction, whatever it is, let's see what it does. See if it does what we want it to do, right? Then there was a plan to do phase 2, which was to restudy everything, see how things worked out, and then decide, should we make it permanent? Should we make some changes? What should we do? But COVID hit, right? So all the phase 1 stuff was done prior to COVID. COVID hit, so obviously couldn't study, do any type of work, measure traffic. It's been a while since the traffic patterns have recovered. Once the traffic patterns have recovered, I got reached out to again, and we're like, what's going on with our phase 2? What's going on with our traffic study? Then we had the Move Culver City project, which took a week on Washington. And if we were going to study the same way they did in phase 1, to try to compare apples to apples, it would not be the same. So we were waiting to find out what happened with Move, and that's been done and implemented. So that's where we are now. So now we're in the phase 2 for 2 things. I'm going to say 2 things that the study's going to do, and I'm going to say 2 things that we really need from the community in order to make this successful. So the 2 things we want to do is to reevaluate phase 1, again, see what worked, see what didn't work in the same way that it was studied before. 2, we want to evaluate all the other ideas that you might have, right? We know there's a cul-de-sac idea. We know there's turn restrictions idea. We know that there's speed bumps ideas. We know that there's all these thoughts and concerns that we want to hear and we want to throw into the mix, right? So while we're evaluating phase 1 and comparing apples to apples, well, let's throw on top of that all of these ideas and see what kind of new setup or new set of traffic calming or new set of measures we can deploy. Now, what we need from you guys. You guys are preaching to the choir because we need participation, and you're all here, which is great. We're going to have several, up to 4 of these types of community workshops. We're going to have several online surveys. We're going to try to do our best to gather all the data, present all the data, and hear from you and document all of these things. So every single comment, every single email that you send to us will be in the project's file and then final report. So participation is number 1. Number 2, the only way anything is going to move forward after this study is if we get consensus from the neighborhood, right? And consensus is going to come in different forms, and our partners at Gibson are going to talk about that a little bit. But we're shepherding this process on your behalf, right? Changes that happen in the street, we cannot just go and do. Cul-de-sac is a great idea, but I just can't go out there and do it, right? It's got to go through this process. We've got to take the study, and also everybody's got to understand what the implications are and how it's going to affect your way in and out of your neighborhood and your friends and your family and whoever wants to visit you on a daily basis. So that's going to be the hardest part. It's not up to me, right? Even if I think it's a great idea to cul-de-sac the street, I can't just do it, right? I have to see who's in favor of it, who's not in favor of it, what the implications are. What does fire department think about it? What does police think about it? A lot of other stakeholders. So we're here primarily for you guys to hear, to participate, and ultimately come to a consensus on a set of improvements. So with that, I'll hand it over to Emily and we'll go through the slides. Please, I don't know, I think it's best if we take the questions at the end. I think there's a lot of information here that we'll kind of go over in terms of process and where we're doing what and why. But again, we want to hear that feedback. So please write down your questions, jot it down, keep it on, and we'll go through it at the end. Is that cool? All right, thank you. And there's a sign-in sheet. Welcome, if anyone hasn't put their name on the sign-in sheet. Yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Emily Long from Gibson Transportation, and with me is Sarah Drovis and Lindsay Hessinger. We are with Gibson Transportation. I'm a senior associate. Just a really quick agenda before we start. These are the items that we want to talk about today. Just a quick intro, we'll give you in a sec, of Gibson Transportation. We want to just kind of go over your neighborhood and the things that affect your neighborhood, the streets, the surrounding uses, so on. Just a quick overview and a reminder of what the NTMP process is and some of the goals that we want to keep in mind when thinking about issues and measures and recommendations. We'll also do a review of the phase 1 issues that were identified and any measures that have been implemented, and as Andrew mentioned, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and then that's where we go into this phase 2 study. We want to get your feedback. This is your study. This is for your neighborhood. Anything that's outstanding for phase 1, as well as any new issues or constraints that you're experiencing today, since it's been some time since that first phase 1 study was done. And then we'll just go over our next steps after this and kind of what the overall phase 2 process is. Just a quick introduction. We're Gibson Transportation. We're based in Glendale, but we do studies all over Southern California. We work closely with Andrew on a lot of traffic impact studies in Culver City, and we've also done quite a few neighborhood traffic management plans throughout Lake County and Southern California. And we're excited to work with you all on phase 2. So we thank you all for being here today. So let's see. The Rancho Higuera neighborhood. You are bounded by National Boulevard, Washington Boulevard, and Hayden and the Hayden Tract, as well as into the south.
Lucerne.
And Lucerne, yes, to the west, to the east, sorry. We understand that there are some major arterials that feed into your neighborhood. You also have quite a few commercial uses within the Hayden Tract. You have schools in the area that feed into your neighborhood, as well as the newly operating Culver Studios. You're also in proximity to downtown Culver City, the 10, and the Culver City project that was implemented along Washington and Culver. So quite a few things that feed into your neighborhood that affect mobility, transportation, and safety. Just a quick reminder of what the NTMP process is. We're here to take your feedback. This is your study, your plan. We're here to collect data, collect your feedback, and you might have noticed that some traffic counting tubes have already been installed in your neighborhood. So that's an ongoing process. We're trying to get as much data as we can before school starts. We also need to, as Andrew mentioned, coordinate with other city departments. It's not just up to us. We need to see what works for fire, police, and other city departments, and we'll take your recommendations. We'll look at it from a technical aspect, and then present to you some conceptual plans. We'll refine that and work towards a finalized plan to present to the city council for their approval. And just some things to keep in mind when we're thinking about the plan. We want to increase safety for you as residents in the neighborhood. We want to preserve the neighborhood for you as residents, that being related to roadway capacity and parking. So trying to limit parking encroachment, cut through traffic. We also understand that there's schools that also affect traffic operations in your neighborhood.
What's a U.S. citizen?
I'm sorry?
You said you want to approve it for U.S. citizens.
For you as citizens. Sorry. No. You as a resident in this neighborhood. Yeah. Just a quick overview of what the issues and challenges were that were identified in phase 1. We recognize that there's speeding because folks are using your neighborhood to cut through. This is just a short list, but along in Seguero, Wesley, Holland, Schaefer, and your neighborhood provides connections to the 10 freeway ramps, Hayden Tract, and other major arterials that connect to the city of Los Angeles and other major arterials to the city of Culver City. We recognize that there were also safety concerns related to visibility, and that some of the parked cars restricted visibility of students and residents crossing the streets along Higuera NTMP. So from there, you all recommended some countermeasures to address those issues that included upgraded pedestrian crossings, some with advanced yield signs to kind of warn drivers that these crossings are coming up, higher visibility crosswalks, which you see here at the Continental crosswalks. There have also been intersection reconfigurations, so this is Inns and Lucerne, to kind of narrow the intersection to reduce folks just like speeding and making that right turn really quickly without stopping. And you've also installed some peak hour and left turn restrictions along National Boulevard to try to limit folks using your streets to cut through traffic. There are still some outstanding measures that Andrew mentioned. Some along is related to the bike lane and speed humps. But the ones in green are the ones that we noted have been implemented since the study was conducted. So that brings us to today, the phase 2 NTMP study. We're here to get your feedback. We want to know what's worked, what hasn't worked, what issues you're still experiencing and challenges you're experiencing living in the neighborhood. We want to understand what additional measures that you have in mind to help tackle and address some of these issues that you as a resident experience on a day-to-day. And some things that we want to remember when thinking about countermeasures are we want to identify a specific problem so that we can identify the most effective measure to address that problem. And we want to try to implement the least amount of change and try to get the more bang for your buck. And just remember that whatever changes that are implemented affect you more as a resident because you're living there all day, every day, whereas a cut-through vehicle is only driving through your neighborhood once or twice a day. So there are also trade-offs. Something that may increase safety may increase your travel time to get in and out of it. So overall, I think the main goal is to build consensus and build a plan that is supported by you as neighbors, and that we can move forward with the city and city council. Before we get to your comments and feedback, just a little quick rundown of what our next steps are. So we'll take your feedback, review, consolidate your comments. As I mentioned earlier, we are already collecting some data that includes intersection peak hour counts, street segment counts, as well as some speed data so that we can use that and compare it with what was previously collected in the phase 1 study and do some comparisons to see what's changed.
So you guys might have seen those tubes around the neighborhood.
Yeah.
I know some of them got kicked up, and thank you for sending the photos. They got resolved, I believe. But those tubes are collecting counts the same days of the week that were done previously and the same duration, so we can really compare apples to apples. I don't know if there are cameras put up for turning movement counts. So you
Yes.
might see cameras on posts near a stop sign, say, and they're measuring measuring how many people turn which direction. So we're gathering all that data right now before school is over. That was the magic cutoff date where we would have been stuck waiting till August or September. So it's good that we're getting the process going, and then as you see, we're going to be analyzing and getting into engagement with you guys.
And I think it's also important to note that the data collection is going to do two things. One, it's going to allow us to compare what the traffic was like before we implemented anything. So before and after of the phase one implementation, but it also helps, in addition to that, helps us kind of document, because travel patterns have changed since COVID. The way people come to and from work, or the days that they come in work, and with Culver City or Culver Studios just being completed and some of their measures on their driveways, what does that mean, and how is that different than what we were seeing before? And the second thing really is to use that information paired with all of your additional recommendations, things that we might not have had in our toolbox in 2019. Now we're able to use, more up to date, more, or I guess more efficient measures to address some of those issues. So that will also help us do the technical engineering work to justify putting in additional measures to do that. Because some of the measures, as Andrew mentioned, we still have to provide technical support to say, yes, a traffic signal is warranted here and these changes are warranted. And then we have to take that justification to the various departments as well. So I think that's important to note that, it's really important that we have the numbers side so that we can help you develop the plan that's technically sound and already has buy-in from the different departments, because those are also the hard to do. And then again, working with you all on the neighborhood consensus side helps us develop a strong plan.
And one last thing before we dive into the question, final portion here is, I know cut through traffic is always number one issue, right? People observing, commuters cutting through. And we mentioned a couple times that we're gonna be taking a look at that. And I just wanted to give you a little insight on how we're gonna do that exactly. The tubes and the cameras don't really do that. They just count in a specific place for a specific time. The way we do that is we have access to a platform called Replica. It's kind of a dashboard that collects the data that comes from cell phones, right? So the way Google knows how fast you're going or where you went from A to B, it's all sent to a big company that then sells it, and it's all anonymous data. It doesn't say that I know that, Beth went from her home to this place at a specific time, but it averages all of these trips and all of this data, and it presents it on a dashboard. And we can carve out an area like Rancho Higuera and ask it to show us, well, how many people went through this area, but their trip did not start here or end here. So that gives us a general sense of what the cut through traffic is like relative to the regular traffic that is generated within that area. So happy to talk about that more if you have questions, but that's how we're going to get in the ballpark of saying, well, in general, we see, 10,000 cars down Higuera, and approximately X% is cut through traffic versus not cut through traffic.
Yeah, just one last slide. Just to kind of a quick overview of just the overall phase 2 process. We're just at the beginning. We still have, I think it was mentioned, a total of 4 workshops, so this being number 1. We want to be able to get your feedback, provide some technical analyses to help analyze the countermeasures that are being recommended, and to see what types of conditions are being experienced in the neighborhood. And we'll put together some conceptual scenarios that will refine and finalize on an iterative process and think about some cost estimates related to that. So that we can present that to the city subcommittees and committees and finally the city council. So we're just at the beginning, so we're excited to hear your feedback and any questions or concerns that you may have. And following this workshop, the city has prepared an email address for you to provide your questions and comments to.
This is our general email box for our entire division, and I've already alerted the folks who monitor this inbox that anything related to Rancho Higuera and NTMP, this traffic study effort, will be forwarded to me and to our partners at Gibson to be noted and taken into consideration and ultimately put in the record, the final report. So with that, I hope we can kind of, folks that want to raise their concerns, to let us know what's top of mind, to let us know if you have any ideas, if you have any questions about the process or how this is all gonna work. I'll try to moderate and go with an order on who's raising their hands.
I have a question.
Yes.
This is more of a scope question. So, thinking back a number of years ago, I remember asking about how cumulus would impact the NTMP. And now I hold my head in my hands and I think of cumulus and habitat and the Hayden Tract Plan and Apple and Warner Brothers and it's overwhelming, right? So National is stopped every morning. And then there's a whole stream of people that are just driving on Hayden to Higuera. And I know we're going to hear from people on Higuera. So from a scope perspective, the first time I sat down in an NTMP meeting, it was about spending money to calm traffic with the Amazon studio build out. So now is there, and the Hayden Tract is not Rancho Higuera. There's an overlap, which is Hayden, but Easton, which to all of us feels like our neighborhood, is not even Hayden. I mean, it's Hayden Tract, but not Rancho Higuera. So can you guide us in the scope of this and what we're allowed to consider? Because I've been very frustrated by knowing the traffic that's coming from all that development and knowing that it's not in scope.
Yeah, so
Or maybe it is in scope.
the scope is essentially the neighborhood, the Rancho Higuera neighborhood. So all of the traffic data that we're collecting
Right.
is within the same area, within these boundaries, on these streets and within these boundaries.
So there's no confirming volumes from new development in Los Angeles.
No, there's no way to know. Again,
Or the new Warner Brothers building, or the new Apple building that's gonna be finished in a couple of years. We don't
so
know.
in general, any development that's outside city of Los Angeles,
Outside the city.
I'm sorry, outside city of Culver City that's in Los
Yeah.
Angeles or in LA County, that's significant and large, and the city of LA has determined, so first it goes to city of LA planning,
Right,
and they determine which are the intersections that will be studied. And if some of those intersections are within Culver City, then we also review those impacts and that study. And we're only able to provide comments on a project by project basis. And we do that for projects in LA. Right?
okay, so that,
Yes,
with
that
Cumulus,
happened. And there were, for Cumulus, I don't remember what exactly they were, but there were specific conditions of approval that were for Culver City. I don't know what they were,
right.
based off of the traffic study that was done. We do the same exercise for projects within city, and even with ones that I've done recently, I've had top of mind kind of protection of the neighborhood, if you will, with regards to driveways or access and that sort of thing. So in terms of development, those are kind of on their own. And in terms of the Hayden Tract specific plan, that is also side of the neighborhood. And I've been in contact and I'm coordinating with the planner who's in charge of it. And it's all gonna depend on, what their document ultimately shows and reflects. based on what we decide as a group here and in this project, will depend really on the timing, because they're just starting.
It's horrible.
They're just starting. So if this process goes through and we found consensus, say, I'm just throwing out numbers, say by a year from now, we're at city council and everybody blessed it and we're like, yes, we love this, whatever it is. That will be part of the Hayden Tract specific plan, because they probably are not gonna be done in a year. Right?
No,
So it all
okay.
depends on time. So they cannot go and put in the Hayden specific plan cul-de-sac, right? It's just an idea right now. Until it becomes a confirmed reality that it's going to happen, then it's just kind of a thought. And they know it's a thought, and they know about all the other ideas that you brought up, but it's not, right now it's like a wait and see type of thing. So they're aware of it, and it'll be, whatever comes out of this will be included in their broader study when it comes to how we're gonna zone and do all that stuff in that neighborhood. I think back there was after somebody raised their hand.
Me.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So you sound like you're starting all over from scratch. Are you not gonna work off our plan, the 10-point plan that we had in the beginning? Is that not the basis for it anymore? You sound like we're starting phase 2 all over.
So again, the phase 2 has 2 primary goals.
Uh-huh.
One is to reevaluate what was put in during phase 1, because at the time, phase 1, there were certain elements that we're not sure if we want to keep them or not.
Ah.
So we're gonna reevaluate in the same manner that traffic was measured in phase 1. We're gonna measure it in phase 2 right now, before and after, right? Just to see, did those turn restrictions on National do what they're supposed to do? Did they do what you think wanted them to do? Did those traffic circles, did those curb extensions, did those pedestrian crossings, did they do what they were
But I
intended
live
to
on
do?
Lucerne and nothing has helped. Lucerne is a
that's-
freeway, and you don't even mention it in the beginning. It's a freeway. It's a disaster. You can't cross the street. You can only park on one side of the street. So if guests come, they have to risk their life to go across the street.
Yeah,
From 3 o'clock till 7, the traffic moves. And you can record it all the way down to Duquesne. And in the morning, they start at 6:30 going the other direction.
right, and that's what we're
Right.
recording with those loops and those cameras that are put up to document and to know the actual number. Because right now, I hear what you're saying, and I can go out there and I can see it for myself. But frankly, that's just anecdotal, right? I see it, but we have to know the exact number. So we can
Okay,
say,
but
well,
we get that, but are we starting all over
So-
again?
no, we're not starting all over. So again, there's 2 things that we want to try to get to at the end of this process. One, of all the things that were done with phase 1, which were one of these
Yeah.
slides, there's all of these things that were done, right?
Ah,
What worked and what didn't work, right? Because at the time, and again, I came in after phase 1 was done, but the thought was, we don't want to make like, it's so concerned. You see all these plastic and rubber.
yeah, I live there.
All the rubber stuff and the sticks. Those are all really low cost, really easy to put in devices. So that was one that we put those in so that let's put it in, see how it does, right? But how are we going to see how it's effective? Well, we have to measure it before and after, and then decide what to do with some of these things. Do you want to keep all this stuff? Is it even worth it? Do you not like it, or is it working? And maybe we make it pretty and with concrete.
I actually
planters
like
and
it,
all that
but
stuff.
it looks tacky.
So that's number 1. Number 2, things like a cul-de-sac or additional turn restrictions or half blockages or all the other ideas that we want to hear from were never studied in phase 1. They were never studied.
Yeah.
Right? We have all the anecdotal evidence, we have the videos, we have the comments, we have the emails, but they were never studied. In order to make something happen, we have to collect the data, we have to present it to you guys and say, okay, well, there's 1,000 cars coming down the street, right? Oh, cut off. And all of a sudden, you guys want to cut it off? Okay, well, here's where all the traffic's gonna go. Some of it's gonna be on your street, some of it's gonna be on your street, some of it on your street. How are we going to deal with that? That's going to be up to you guys. So that's the second part of this study in order to move forward. So we need to know the consensus of, what should we do with what we did on phase 1? Is it a yes or a no? Is it good? Is it bad? And then how are all these other ideas and thoughts to combat the problems and issues that you're having in your neighborhood it's gonna make an effect on somebody somewhere.
Can I say?
Yeah.
Having your survey by internet cuts out half the population of Rancho Higuera because we are heavy on seniors.
I
And
understand.
if it's not by paper, it's just really, you're narrowing it down to a small population. You know, not the real people that have lived there for the 35 years I've lived here.
Mhm.
You know, and so I really think that gathering the data on the internet of what the people think is just plain wrong.
Well, that's why we're taking a like different ways of receiving information from you. So one of them obviously is this type of meeting, workshop. We have the email address, we have a phone number, and we have a survey later on. So there's multiple ways that the neighborhood, and we urge you to tell all your friends and family or folks that were not here to please reach out to us if they have questions or concerns. The more information we hear from you, the better. And there's no bad idea. I'm not here to say, no, we can't do it, right? I'm here to say, we want to hear from you. And by the way, once we hear from everybody, the next meeting, you're going to start to see, well, based off of what we heard, we think these are, 3 or 4 ideas on how to address all of these things and try to start to show you, well, if we did this, then it's going to have an effect here, right? Because 1,000 cars just don't disappear. They still need to go from Jefferson to the 10 somehow. And, maybe if we block all this traffic, it will protect your neighborhood, but now you have to go around the national or whatever to get to your house. So that's the type of process we're looking at. So consensus is the word, like non-having consensus is the worst enemy of progress, if you will, in terms of this process. We cannot build anything until obviously the city council hears it and approves it. But if we put something to the city council and all the neighbors come out and say, well, we weren't part of this process, you didn't hear us, we don't consent to this, it's only a few people, then it stops. They're not going to approve it. Right? Okay.
Oh, I think they were raising their hands.
So yeah, let's.
I'll make my points very quickly.
Sure.
It was Sarah and Emily and Lindsay, just for your studies, just 4 quick things to look at. The speed of traffic, already we know on this, on INS. We talked about that phase 1 stuff with the crosswalks. Nobody stops on the crosswalks. They're nice, you guys have done well with the signs and the paint, but I know all of us have experienced trying to cross that INS, and none of the drivers care. It's like they're free of the traffic and they see a jetway and they just take off. The second thing would be parking. This would be on Culver. This would be on Carson and Hubbard and Lucerne probably, because of how desirable the neighborhood is just right out here. Everybody is coming and just parking on our streets. I've lived there for 20 years. I've always just parked right in front of my house, Heine's house, or Beth's house very easily. And it's no longer the case. It is very difficult for all of us to find parking on Culver Street. The third and final thing, which everybody's going to address, is obviously just what's going on up Higuera in the morning times, in the afternoon times. You already know about that. It's very difficult if you live in the neighborhood and you have a job to get to at, let's say, 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock. You're going to have to put in an extra half hour because you're going to be stuck in your neighborhood for 30 minutes before you're able to get out of the city. Those are just my 4 quick points. Everybody else can.
One real quick thing about your parking concern. If your block, the neighbors on your block want to explore permit parking, which I forget which streets do or don't in that neighborhood, contact me and we can talk offline, because that can be done totally separate and probably faster than this whole process.
Thank you so much.
The parking is something we can do administratively through the program, and we have information on our website, but I can go through those options for you. But really, they're going to be looking at what traffic calming measures can be implemented and everybody can live with.
Those crosswalks were supposed to have lit up lights that go across.
Can we take numbers? I feel like there's.
Okay, I think there was one more in the back.
No. There's 2 other people that wanted to talk.
Sure. So there's someone else in the back, and then we'll put them up here. Or 2 people.
I comments from my friend who couldn't be here.
Sure.
Her biggest thing was the crosswalks, nobody outside of the neighborhood stops for them. And then the cleanliness with the bump outs and things like that, all of the debris that's in them, and they're broken and nobody cleans them, and how trashy they look now. And then my personal concerns, I have a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old, and there's a lot of kids on Wesley Street now. people still speeding down it. It's a very narrow street, so I can't tell you how many cars have crashed on our thoroughfare. And then at National, there was a local dad a few months ago who was hit.
Yeah.
And it's just,
And there's someone killed there.
yeah,
Yeah.
so if,
Wow.
if Wesley is one of the streets for consideration of the cul-de-sac, I've seen other cities that have them that are more barriers that will drop down for emergency vehicles, if that's something that's consideration, as opposed to like a permanent barrier, because I know it is still main cut through.
So there isn't a set location or place
Mhm.
that is currently under consideration. We want to hear what you guys think are good ideas. So I
I
just
would
want
be
to make
fine,
that clear.
I would be fine blocking off Turning Point and having a barrier on this side of Turning Point, because it's,
Why don't they drop off the kids on Landmark, they go to Turning Point? That's never made sense to me. If they go down Landmark, it drops the kids off in the back of the school instead of in the front of the school. Problem solved. I mean, it's like,
Right. Yeah.
That's a good idea.
But then you still got Leonard Street in Washington.
right, you do, but it takes out the neighborhood. That's more businessy.
Yeah, that's true.
and then I know everybody's addressed it, but my parents live on Madison, my record is 35 minutes to go 8 blocks to come home.
Okay, was there one more here and then we'll come to the front and then we'll go to the back.
I had a question about this kind of the scope. Like, is there anything that is in scope about making national easier for people, as sort of encourage them away from the neighborhood? Is that, we got left, no left turns that kind of prevent them from coming in, but are there anything we can do that's, or any ideas that can kind of?
I mean, I would say any idea is on the table, right? So, from the extreme of just making that median on National complete so that nobody can turn left in or out of it, to perhaps, they're called turn restrictions by curb extension. So you could restrict like right turns in from a certain direction by like kind of building it out, but still allowing lefts or right, from that street. You know what I'm saying? Like if you kind of cul-de-sac, half a cul-de-sac, if you will. So again, the mix of where they go and what you're trying to restrict will have different impacts in different parts of the neighborhood. So that's why we're gonna try to compile some of these ideas and then break them down into maybe 5 or so scenarios and say, well, if you did this, then this will happen, and so on and so forth.
Nancy.
Is there, and I missed the presentation, but is there a specific, other than an email, and by the way, I would really ask that staff or consultants consider a specific email. I don't love the fact that it's a general email. I want to know in the city council report, how many emails you received?
Yeah.
And from whom, right? If you see 100 from 2 people, that's not the same as receiving 500 from
So,
500 people.
Yeah, there will be a log, so I've already alerted the folks who manage and check that inbox that anything related to this project will be forwarded to myself and the consultant team, and I think there's a log, an email log of who it came from and when and what generally it talked about. I don't know if all the emails are attached for privacy, but I think it's all,
I mean, it's fine. I'm not saying I need to see these.
yeah,
I'm just saying
but
that
yeah, there will be,
the team needs to know that you're getting a lot of.
obviously, yeah.
That's the first question. The second question is that the email and these workshops the only way that the community will be able to provide input?
So there will be a survey as well once we start to develop some of the scenarios, like what do you think of this, or what do you think of, potentially closing or any of these types of treatments. So there will also be a couple of public meetings held with the committee members, so the Mobility Parking Traffic Committee and the Mobility Subcommittee. I think it's the timer, yeah. So those allow public comment. So the primary way is these 4 workshops. This is workshop 1 of 4, right? And each one is set in the schedule to provide you update and to again receive feedback so we can further refine and bring to you the next iteration. Email at any time, telephone at any time, survey. I think there will be a couple of surveys sent out.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't know if it's on a sensor, but
It's on a motion sensor.
it's probably
It's on
controlled
a-
by.
yes. Yeah, are we gonna have interactive
I'm sorry, were you
conversations
done
here?
with your question? So she's still got
You
another
can
question.
go ahead. You come around.
Are we gonna have interactive conversations here?
I hope this is an
Okay,
interactive
so
conversation, but
that-
let's just remind everybody, we'll go one by one.
Okay, so
And
the
give other people-
crosswalks on ends, we're supposed to have little flashing lights where you press the button and it signaled. But they were in the beginning and then they were out of the program. They were there actually installed and then they were taken away.
Okay.
Okay, and that's how it was supposed to be in the original plans that we planned 10 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, so that could calm that down so that people could cross the street.
Okay.
Okay,
Let's go to the back. Hello.
The flashing lights, I don't remember, was a Paxton put them in. It was a temporary thing, and then he ripped them right out after it was done. But we did want them.
Okay, yeah, that's something.
Or some kind of other thing that slows it down. We've been talking about this for long, I know over 15 years, we've been talking about slowing down traffic on ins, and there hasn't been anything. So let me get through, because there's a couple of things. One, Lucerne is a mess. It's very difficult, especially for kids to get to school. Myself and my 10-year-old daughter has been multiple times verbally assaulted by drivers, swearing at us, telling us not to be in the road and that bikes don't belong in the road. Even though Lucerne has bikes painted, there's signs, but those are worn out things, and the signs are small, and it is not really clear, especially for agro drivers who just are cutting through quickly, and they don't mind you get 10-year-old girls. So, I mean, and then I asked there's another father with kids that I said, has this happened to you? He goes, all the time. So it's not right, right? And we're just trying to get to our kids to school, and it's dangerous because you don't know how those other people are going to react physically at some point. So going on to crosswalks, sorry, I don't know your name, but the crosswalks, I thought personally work on Higuera because their traffic doesn't go quite as fast. They don't work on Ince because it's sometimes hard to gauge how fast they're going because people might speed up, right? So they think they're getting a little speed and they'll go through and they're not looking for people on crosswalks. And so the safest thing is not to use the crosswalk unless there's no cars. So that's something to think about. Turning Amazon, the returning restrictions, we mentioned turning restrictions. Soft restrictions don't work. I haven't seen anyone in Amazon actually obey those rules. They always take lefts. So we talked about, so Ince and Lucerne are a big concern. We need more signage. We need it obvious that bikes can get through, that for safety for kids and everyone. And I would like to know if there was an update from Red Car about the bike lane getting to the bike path, because that would be the safest way to get bikes off of Lucerne.
So real quick about Ince Boulevard. I know that there were the speed humps that were proposed as part of phase one. We still have not gotten to the bottom as to why they weren't installed. So I'm
Yeah.
still working on
I
it.
can tell you why.
Okay.
Donna can tell you why too, right? We both were on that walk where they told us why.
I don't remember.
The previous staffer, I think some of you guys were on that walk, so that, I'm sorry, who was the?
Gabe,
Gabe, I will tell everyone, Gabe told us that because that study was done during the pandemic and it wasn't your typical traffic, that we needed to wait until the studios were at full capacity, not just reopen. And it was kind of like a leniency they were allowing to make sure that the studio had enough time to get at full capacity.
So I heard this explanation, but that was with regards to the bike lane. I know that the
Yeah,
bike lane was the
No,
whole
it was
thing that was not
related
installed.
because, but hold on, let me get to the punchline. So because they think they only want that the city, according to Gabe, only wanted to do the road work once.
Oh, resurfacing. maybe?
Because it would require, if you get the bike lane and you do the bump, then it would both require road work, and they didn't want to do it twice.
Okay. But however, so putting that aside, there we did get a request through our regular inquiries from the public. One of your neighbors had asked about speed concerns on its, and we did do a separate. So we do these little mini studies. If anyone wants like a stop sign, or they want a speed bump, or they want to look at certain things on kind of like a smaller scale basis, we do those studies. And we did look at Ince Boulevard. We did collect data. And we did already approve, and the subcommittee approved the new stop sign on Ince and Hubbard. So
At
that
Culver?
one, yeah.
Oh, at Culver or Hubbard?
I forget which one it is.
That was a three-way stop
I
at
thought it
Kruger.
was Kruger.
Kruger? Okay,
Three-way
Kruger.
stop at
I
Kruger.
get it all confused. Kruger.
Oh, yeah.
So Ince and Kruger will get a full
Three-way stop.
I
Yeah.
just had an email from one person and you went out and did a study.
Yeah, that's what we
You
do.
got a stop sign. Wow.
But
Okay,
you have,
so
hold
that's-
on, that seems odd, Andrew, I'm just gonna say sorry, because all of us, I can show you videos of my child almost gotten killed several times on it. And yet, one person got a study? Sorry, that just doesn't add up.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm hoping your kids don't experience that all the time, but if they do, we want to hear about that. If you do have a concern, if anyone in the community has a concern that they're looking for a stop sign, they want speed bumps, they want, whatever it is that comes traffic related, as long as it's on a smaller scale, it's kind of what I call a one-off. That's what we do. We'll take a look at it. And we have a public hearing. It went to the mobility subcommittee, and there was a public hearing, and there was notices sent out, and a four-way stop is not the same as turn restrictions or cul-de-sac. So that's why it goes on its own little one-off process. And we're happy to do that for any resident in the city, and any business owner that wants changes to the frontage in terms of parking or whatever the case may be, we're happy to work with them one-on-one.
Don, do you mind? Gabe saying something different.
Yeah, we
That's
got
not what we were
completely
The
different
bike, in
story.
terms of the bike lane, that is my understanding, that there was, the Amazon Studios had an EIR, and an EIR kind of trumps a lot of the stuff that we do. We cannot change things that are determined and finalized in an EIR. And the EIR had all of these turn lanes
Environmental
into their driveways, into their garages. And a bike lane would not fit with the configuration that they had in that EIR. However,
Remember that.
in terms of the bike path and red car and all of that stuff, that is that's a private development, right? Red Car is a private property owner, and they are thinking of developing that site, and in addition to their site, adding a bridge across Biona Creek, which would connect to Jefferson and could nicely connect to the downtown via a bike lane on Ince. If that development is moving forward, they would be responsible for the bridge. The bike lane on Ince would come on our portion, but in order to kind of undo that EIR, which had a traffic study and said, oh, all these cars are going to turn right into the studio, we would have to come back and do our own sort of mini study to show, are they right or are they wrong? What's the reality? Can it live without all of these right turn lanes that they had?
Are we talking like a 5-year thing? Are we talking
Well,
10 years
I
out?
mean,
Because
right.
we could do something much faster in the meantime. We could paint make it clear that bikes could be safer on Ince, and redo
Right.
some of the signage on Lucerne, slow everything down on Ince. I'm not more than a stop sign.
I hear you. So I think we can maybe try to look into doing that mini study at this point, just to see what it looks like. But really, the red car property kind of resurrected this idea.
Yes.
But that's why the bike lane is not there right now, right? And so the city is still wanting to, I don't know when, maybe like I said, we'll start it with this process to look at those numbers of how many people are turning right and try to compare with the EIR to see if it's on par with what they were forecasting, or if it's something that they can live without.
Can I say that?
So let's go around. There's who
Oh,
else
there.
hasn't spoken yet? Yes, sir.
Sorry.
Are you sure you don't mind?
Oh, no, you can do it, Dick. Get on it.
Could I make a suggestion that we could notify the police PD to use tablets for tickets?
They have some sort of handheld, yeah, like a smartphone that they write.
Similar, well, I know Gardena has it, most of Beach has it, Torrance has it. And it's very safe for the officer because right away they take a picture of the person and the license plate. But if they could use these tablets to give someone a ticket, it becomes a very fast.
Well, the parking enforcement folks cannot write tickets.
No,
for
this is
those
not
types
part
of-
of that, this is the motor.
I see.
This is actually
Yeah.
moving violations.
Yeah.
For example, when we go to work, and we try to turn on Hayden, it's like Russian roulette. We got all those people from the school, and decide that they want to go down Higuera. So they go and they make an illegal U-turn,
Yeah.
come back the other way, and you're going,
Yeah.
and if you had a police officer with a tablet, which is Motorola,
Yeah.
and a few other people do, they could just stop that person, give them their ticket, and let them go on their way.
And that brings up a good point, just to mention in general. I mean, that diverter that's there at Hayden and Higuera, I think it's been there more than 20 years or so. I mean, we've put it out kind of as physically long as possible, right? Even with like little extender pegs.
Doesn't make a difference.
Doesn't make a difference. We put up tons of U-turn signs down there on Hayden Place. Doesn't make a difference. Keep that in mind when you're contemplating some of these things. Like, we can put physical stuff, but people do find a way. The other thing is that our police department, as good as they are, nobody can be everywhere at all times. So all of these restrictions that we put up with signs, right? It's like mostly honor system, right? We don't have speed enforcement cameras. We don't have turn cameras like Europe does. We don't have all these things to catch everybody all the time. So it's never going to be a catch-all in terms of signage. Just understand.
Going back to the idea of using the tablets, that if you have, let's say, an officer there, he can stop somebody, give them their ticket, and be on their way in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And whereas if he stops somebody now, we've got to sit there and write it all down.
Yeah, that's
And
the
it
way.
takes them 20
that's the way
minutes.
the law is.
I don't know what was stated before I got here, so I'm sorry if I'm repeating. I live on Shaper, and so the cul-de-sac of Higuera would be absolutely wonderful. But it would make it very difficult for people who do come that far before they figure it out. If there aren't signs all the way down, there's no outlet, there's no outlet, there's no outlet, there's no outlet. And no left turns, well, at the time, or if they did the cul-de-sac and came around, then there'd be no right turns on Shaper, Westgate, and Helms in order to get out. They need to, if people want people to get out of their cars, this is the only way to do it. The bike lanes and all that other garbage that they did before, that just makes everybody mad. But to keep the cars where the cars should be on the main roads is just keep them there, keep them on Duquesne, keep them on Jefferson. You wanna sit there for 2 hours, you sit there for 2 hours. Or you get out and you ride mass transit. Because they should not be in our neighborhoods. There should be signs all the way down those streets, no outlets, residents only, to turn up those streets, residents only during these hours. Otherwise,
Right.
Okay, goody, but during the hours of to school, home from work, and to work, residents only. And
Yeah, unfortunately, we can't designate any public street to be a resident only. That's just in the vehicle code. All the public streets are open to all. We cannot make those restrictions. We can put turn restrictions.
No, that's what I mean, there's term restrictions during those hours.
Yeah, but they cannot be restricted to people that don't live there only. That's like an impossibility. Doesn't work that way. So that's what it's gonna be the challenges we have the tool, we know what the tools are to combat the issues that you guys see, but it's gonna inconvenience somebody, it's gonna put extra traffic on this street or that street. That's gonna be the hardest part, and that's what we're trying to explore through this process. So it's less us and it's more you about what is gonna be the bigger benefit for that inconvenience, because even if you physically do it with a diverter or a turn restriction or a bulb out, that just means like you still have to have access to your street, and then all the public has access to your street. how you get there, and if it's more inconvenient for the commuter to, have to go all the way around just to avoid that shortcut that they were taking, is gonna be the same inconvenience for you. So I'm just gonna remind folks that came in, if they have not signed in, please put your name down on the sign-in sheet. Another question in the back, I think, who hasn't spoken yet? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm Simon. I've spoken to you and I've been involved in this thing right from the 90s on. That, quite frankly, that situation of inconveniencing the local people is a bigger challenge. This is where everybody down your streets, I mean, I'm not going to be honest, and I have to make a decision as to whether you want this traffic to be decreased or not, because if some people take 5 minutes to get to a place that they normally go to, take 10 minutes longer than what they're doing now, and they feel that's not going to cut it, and they don't want that, then this thing's not going to work. I'm just saying, this has been the biggest resistance right from the get-go. That cul-de-sac over there would work. But because some people don't want to go around and do the little thing and everybody else is going to do, because whatever reason, I'm not going to say what it is, it'll sabotage the whole thing.
Right.
And so that's going to be the most difficult sell we have. I've always maintained that.
I used
There's
to work.
many people that have an issue, and there will be inconvenienced, but look at the plus side. You're gonna have a neighborhood that is not separated from an industrial area or commercial area, which is walkable, where people can live in, your property values, and everything is going to improve. I mean, I know because before we even had the surplus in the Alberta, I used to live there. I nearly didn't want to buy my house. But if everybody has this thing that they can't do a little bit of extra thing because it's going to take 10 minutes to be done, that's going to be the challenge.
And I used to work in Santa Monica, and our PD used to tell me all the time that most of the time when there's these turn restrictions or things that are put in for neighborhood traffic calming, they write more tickets for people that live there than don't live there. So that's just part of it. Like I think Emily said earlier, you guys drive through there more often than the commuter does, but once or twice a day. So you're going to tend to encounter whatever gets approved or whatever you want to have more than those commuters. We do want to make it less encouraging and less easy, but how we do that, that's the $1 million question. So we're going to come up with ideas. We have lots of ideas and tools in the toolkit. We're going to kind of throw it all up, and we got so many comments about this and so many comments about that. What kind of makes sense to gather all of those things in different ways, maybe 5, 6 different ways. Look at it. How much does it cost? What's it going to do to traffic? Come and show you guys, hey, scenario 1 through 4 does this and this and this and that. And then you might tell us, oh, we like this idea, but not that idea, or, whatever. And then we'll come back with a little more refinement, a little bit more numbers. Okay, we heard you. Forget this. We're gonna look at these things, but oh, by the way, it's going to impact this street more than the other, based off of our projections and simulations and stuff. And by the way, here's the number of cut-through traffic approximately. So this is how much reduction we can see, but at the same time, if they all go to National or Jefferson, it might spill over. Whatever. That's the exercise that this whole thing's about. Yeah.
2 things quickly. Feedback on phase 1, super brief overview. The left turns onto Wesley Schaefer Helms. I don't know, I haven't studied it, but it doesn't seem heavy. What seems really heavy to me is everyone's coming down Hayden,
Going around
Higuera,
Culver.
and then either Higuera or Lucerne to Inst. Like that's the class. It's what we've talked about from the beginning,
Yeah.
and that's the bigger problem. We don't want to create a problem on all those side streets, but I don't see it like the moms with their cell phones driving 50 miles an hour in the minivan. They took a right turn to drop off their kids and then they just keep going. I mean, every other one is looking at their phone driving down the
Yeah,
street.
and so that brings.
She lives about 4 houses down from me and we're like, oh my God, is she gonna hit?
So that's a great example. Like one of the things we would look at is at Lucerne and Higuera, how many people are making that left, and how many people roughly make that left and go up Inns, right? So maybe a cul-de-sac at Hayden and Higuera is maybe not as important. Maybe it's that you can't turn left to go down to Lucerne. an idea.
And that,
right?
the second
Like, where are
question-
they trying to go? And instead of blocking it at like the one source, like, again, these are the types of things that we will look at with the traffic data that we need to collect and need to know the numbers
Right.
to be able to say, well, if we did this, then those 300 cars are gonna have to go somewhere else and their percentages go this way, percentages go that way.
Of course, it's hard to know where the water runs when you dam it up.
When you what?
It's hard to know where the water goes when you dam it up. They
That
go
is, and
down
that's,
Lucerne, they
and,
go down Carson.
and with EIRs and with this process, we do our best and we have approximations, right? There's traffic simulation software, there's like AI these days, and however else, all the fun tools that they mentioned earlier that weren't available in phase one that we have now to get us a little bit more accurate, right? It's never gonna be the 100% definitive, we can't know into the future what's gonna happen.
Do we have to do some, so David Garcia, the reason we had t-shirts is because we had to get 70% of the neighborhood to sign off, so he could take it to city council.
Yeah.
So do we have to do that now?
I don't know yet. I kind of asked that question before in our kickoff meeting to, you know.
67.
67.
I don't-
67%.
I don't-
It was a crazy number, yeah.
That we were doing the math, and Fred, Marcus and I were like,
Yeah.
I don't think the tell all the last straw is a, you know, a
We have to
petition or a
organize- we have to
vote.
do that, we need to know, because we had to
No,
organize.
I don't know
to get
yet. I
700
think,
households.
When will we know?
And then to get.
I think probably by the next workshop or
The
two.
next workshop.
I think it's gonna be more of the types of comments and the amount of comments we hear on certain things.
Can I say something? And it also
Yeah.
depends on the measures that are selected. And, you know, I think
Yeah.
he was talking about, okay, we've got stop signs and upgraded pedestrian crosswalks. Those things don't require 100% vote of the city to be able to say, yeah, we should do this. So a lot of it has moved forward and progressed from the old way of thinking of everybody has to agree before we can do anything. And so we've done this in the city of LA and Hollywood and other areas and really tried to focus on, there's a lot of things that can be implemented. There are things that can be implemented on a temporary basis, sort of like what was done before, but even quicker to say, okay, we put this up for 6 months and it doesn't work, or the neighbors say absolutely not, then we can easily take that out, try something else. I think the other thing that is really great about revisiting and opening up phase two is because there has been so many changes in the last 7 years, especially with COVID and all these other developments, as you mentioned, the travel patterns, I know inside the neighborhood, you experience them all the day, but on the outer streets, they've changed, you know, depending on the days of the week, when people are coming into the office, when they're not coming into the office, whether. And so I think this is the opportunity to say, what else should we be thinking about? Instead of, we were only confined to what was proposed before, I think that this opportunity in the workshop will really say, this is what we have today with the measures. What else? What's the next implementation? What's the next step should we be doing? And I think also that gives some opportunity too to say, here's what the priority is for our neighborhood. These things need to be done immediately. And here's some other big ideas that take a lot longer to study or more expensive, you know, requires a heavier lift from the city side. And that's important for you all to know, so we don't come in and say, well, it only works if we build a new traffic signal, which is $1 million. That takes a lot longer to do. But we've got these other 5 things that will have the same effect as doing the one big thing. And I think that's what we found to be great about this process is we have a new opportunity to say, yeah, these things worked or they haven't worked, but what else should we be doing? And we really should do a plan that takes you based off of what's going on today.
There's a section between Lucerne, not really Lucerne, more like Wesley and the end of the block, the end of where the diverter is on Higuera. that the diverters kind of stop, and if you look, there's a straightaway. And people race that so badly. I mean, and then there's these chains that go across the street. Well, they've been monkeying with those chains so their employees can get in and out of there.
The driveways, you mean,
Yeah, yeah. Actually, one was down for the last 6 months until this weekend.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Fire road?
I
The fire
fixed
road
it.
chain?
I fucking-
Yeah, they're all fire.
Yeah, they're all fire lanes. No one would put a new lock on that, so I went and bought it. I mean, like, let's get this shit done. It's supposed to be maintained that way so that they don't go down to gear, but yet no one's in charge of it.
Just
I mean, someone's gonna do something.
So, just real quick, in terms of like the consensus, it's gonna come in different forms, right? I don't think we're gonna have like a petition. I think the fact that we're all here and engaged is a good sign that we don't need to get some sort of formal vote or petition sign.
Yeah.
Because again, we're going to try to whittle down all the data and all the ideas down, hopefully to 2 or 3 that we can present, again, at the 4th community meeting, that'll be like, okay, after all of this, this is what we have. What do you guys think? Right? Then we're gonna take those 3 also and go to the committees. What do they think? Public comment. Ultimately, we have to come back and say, we have chosen whatever it is, 1, 2, or 3, that goes to the city council. There's gonna be plenty of time for.
And they're ultimately gonna make the call.
They will have to approve, yeah, it's not up to me, it's not up to the public works director to say, yes, it's this or that, it's up to you guys primarily, and ultimately the city council on behalf of the entire city to say that this is what we're gonna do. So, one here, or, I'm sorry, you haven't spoken, sir, so let's go.
Oh, I appreciate it. Well, on this last part, do we have an understanding what type of budget that we have? Or you say, well, it's gonna cost us much? Like,
Yeah, so we have plenty of budget to do plenty of traffic studies, so we're well funded through this portion. Whatever's left over, I doubt can fund like a cul-de-sac or some serious civil improvement. So as we go through this, depending on how fast we go through this process, and we will have cost estimates for all of us to understand the magnitude of the cost for each scenario. But that's something that we will budget in future budget processes. We do have a pot of money for like studies and these types of traffic studies. But the major heavy construction will have to be a separate capital improvement request in either next year or the year after.
is that kept somewhat transparent to us?
I'm sorry?
Is that budget kept somewhat transparent?
Oh,
to
of
us?
course. Actually, just before this meeting, we had this council was hearing the budget presentations from all the departments. So we go through the budget process every January, February-ish, where the city staff puts forth the requests for all the projects and the amounts that we're looking for. By this time every year, it goes before the council. There was a proposed budget, I think, released last Monday. It's on the website. And in the back section is the capital improvement program. So we would come in and say, well, we have, even if we don't know exactly which one yet, we would try to budget in advance so that by the time we're done with the process, we could start, whatever it is, $1 million, $1.5 million to fund this construction effort.
Thank you. And then let me hit 2 other quick points. One, I live at Culver and Higuera, and there was a person struck 2 months ago. So it's probably noted, and nice that that person's vote raised, I'm sure, right now.
Sure.
It's a very fast street, and yeah, I think I agree with what Don was saying, that there is the roundabouts maybe aren't wide enough. You really don't have to.
Yeah,
Right
and
away.
I think that was the idea of putting those little rubber enhanced. Some of them are concrete, original concrete roundabouts that are relatively small. So I think as part of round 1, the feedback was, well, people aren't slowing down for them. So they added the rubber kind of enhancements to make them a little bit wider to get people to slow down because they're narrower. I know they break and they don't look nice, but things like that if it's worth investing and hopefully the numbers, if they maybe the numbers show it hasn't been as effective and maybe we're at our maximum in terms of narrowing down, then that's when we make a choice. Do we make it concrete so they're not as flimsy? Do we narrow it even further to make it harder? But that's the type of exercise.
We were told that garbage trucks needed a certain distance to get through.
That is very true.
And it used to actually, but I will say this, once drivers are used to driving down that road, they start feeling more and more comfortable slaloming through it.
Yeah.
I don't know, even if you made it wider and wider, they would do that. I did think about one thing though, is if you added height to those curves.
Yeah.
That sounds, it looks scarier.
And there's other ways, other treatments to roundabouts that can accommodate the larger vehicles, but still achieve the narrowness that we're trying to accomplish for the regular folks. So there's all those, again, lots of tools in the toolkit. We just want to hear what you're, so obviously speeding and cut through and all of these things.
I never thought of that.
One thing real quick, just a block up from there at Limblade and Higuera.
Yeah.
We talked about this, Beth. There's the really messed up stuff that's there.
Yeah.
The planter, and then there's the curb extension off to the side that really looks terrible. I think, I don't know if they started this week, but we're about to change all that out to something a little bit hopefully nicer with pavers and none of these sticks and all this stuff that gathers a lot of debris. So we're gonna have the tree is gonna be planted in the ground. I think they already told to put it back. Did they already do it? I haven't gone out there.
Last week I saw them.
Yeah, so I think they took it out of the box and we put it in the ground. And the contractor that's working on the intersection here is going to redo the corner with the new new edge and pavers, as well as the circle. So that's kind of, we've been trying to clean up areas like this, just not changing the configuration, but just changing the aesthetics. And hopefully if it works out and it looks decent and it stands up to a storm or two, we can do it in other places, but just FYI. We'll go 1, 2, 3, okay?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to know, you said that the traffic count numbers will be available later.
The counts, if you want them, you could, I mean, they're gonna be in the appendix of the document, the actual raw numbers, but they'll all be summarized when we come back, probably the next workshop, to summarize the highlights and the key intersections and all.
Will it also summarize the cell phone data that you were talking about?
Well, yeah, we were gonna have an exercise of looking at the cut throughs, yeah.
I have a couple of questions. First one is, I think it's important that the community know up front whether or not we're gonna need signatures. And I say that because we needed 66.6 of the residents to get like no left turn lanes. I mean, not lanes, sorry, a sign. Remember, I mean, for those of us that collected, it was, so to me, this story that we're hearing, love it if it's like final. And no, we're gonna be able to do this without collecting that, because that's a big difference.
Yeah.
And I don't want us to go too far down the road of we're designing it, and then you surprise us, hey, guess what? You gotta collect those signatures.
Yeah, as of now, I don't have a plan to have a petition. I think given the participation and hopefully that
But there's
I'm being on the
460 something homes.
I understand, and that's why I'm hoping through seeing the
There's
number of
700.
folks here, and it's not gonna be.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's 700.
I'm wrong.
I'm
Oh,
just,
maybe that's the number.
I'm being optimistic that through all the different outreach methods that, through
Okay.
the neighborhood association, through our bulletins, through our website, through you guys talking to your neighbors and telling them, hey, if you want some impact, tell us. I'm being optimistic that will be the case, that we don't need a round of signatures. That I
help
can
me
stand in front of the
understand.
city council at the end of the day and said, we did all this outreach, we had all these meetings, we heard from X amount of people, we had so much attendance at all these things, that I feel confident that everyone was aware and participated if they wanted to participate and had their voice heard.
But is that, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna ask very specific.
Sure.
Does that mean that if one person comes out very strongly, because there usually is, and opposes what most people advocated for,
Correct.
does that mean you then would say you require signatures? I just wanna make sure.
No,
Okay,
not
so
at all.
that is okay. So you're saying you just wanna make sure you have enough input,
Exactly.
but it's gonna sound like it's something that you can determine later that you don't? So
No,
it's
I'm being
kinda
optimistic. I'm being optimistic. I can't give you an answer right now.
Okay,
I'm
okay.
sure it's still something that we could consider.
We don't wanna
depending on
do
how
it,
this process
right?
goes.
We don't wanna collect the signatures. So like, let's be clear.
Well,
We don't
again,
wanna
you're
do
just
that.
one person speaking for
Well, no,
700.
that's always been the issue.
But we collected them.
That's always been the issue.
I know, but
Because
again,
they come and all the ones that don't know anything, and they
it's-
come and complain. That's
It's a
what-
little, it's a little sensitive, right? Because, like, who didn't get the petition and all that stuff, if we would do it, it's something that we would do. And we've done these all the time for the traffic studies. I think the gentleman asked for the parking study that was sitting right there earlier on the left. But that's what we do with the parking studies, but we do it in a more methodical way. We have every single address. We make sure everybody gets it. If
No,
it's
that's what
something
we do.
bounces
That is what
back.
we did. That is what
I
we
know,
did.
but I'm saying we would do it. We would have to
Except
do
we
it.
didn't.
Exactly. We would have to do it, but I don't,
Megan.
right now, I have a positive feeling that we won't need to go to that level. It would be like another piece of information, but again, say like 60 or 80% signed it, there is still is a chance that nothing happens, right? Or it goes to the council, it goes to this, like there's other considerations, fire might, so it's a little delicate on, you know, what weight that might have or what weight, you know, in the opposite direction. So I would like, my initial thought was not to have it and not to have a petition.
Okay.
Thank God.
Yes.
But we shall see.
Uh,
Maybe a council member at the last minute will say, well, you do this and he really wants it, or she, then we have to do it. I don't know.
Okay, the second question is faster, and that is about the. It gave me.
All right.
Okay. Is there, I know that we're doing the study, there's gonna be 4 phases, right? As you mentioned, 3 more phases.
3 more meetings.
Yes.
3 more meetings.
In the meantime, can we fast track a couple of things like putting out rubber speed bumps on its just to slow it down in the meantime? Can we get new paint for the bike stuff on there and signs saying share the road? Something that this could be done next week kind of ideas, right? Just to, in the you can, those are things that can be worked around or and removed if with the real plan.
Sure.
But something that does something today to make things safer.
Sure. Yeah, we can look at other options. Like I said, the stop sign is going in the middle of that block.
But that's not enough.
I understand.
People move so fast. I have to wait. We have to cross from Carson, cross the street with every morning with my daughter. The cars come at intervals so fast that we can't get out until there's a pause where they take 2 cars to go down Discern rather down Inns. We don't have the time to get across. We sometimes wait like 3-4 minutes until there's a gap.
Yeah.
And so there needs to be something that slows it down in intervals, not just one spot on Inns, which is a big long straight.
Like I said, we just did the data collection for speed concerns on Inns. So let me go back and take a look at that
Right,
data.
but I'm just asking for
Are they gonna be blinking?
I know like a single stop sign, a speed hump on a street, all those types of things, we have to go through that kind of the one-off process. We went through the one-off process and we authorized the stop sign at that one intersection. I'm gonna take that data that we collected, because it was on the entire stretch, and take a look and see what else we can do. Okay, I can't say that, yes, we'll just go out tomorrow and put a speed bump.
But is the stop sign gonna blink on it?
No, the stop sign.
Oh, that's really not that good.
Needs to blink.
Good.
It needs to blink.
It needs to blink. There needs to be some blinking at the crosswalk somehow.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if
Like,
there's
the
solar
blinking
panel, little,
helps.
it does have the solar things.
Oh, the flashing for the crosswalks, yeah, I'll look and see for the other ones on Inns if we have any left over in the yards.
Oh, yeah.
All right, I think we're winding down. Are there any other
Thank you for coming.
questions or comments, things that we should know about, or things that we would need to clarify?
I don't have any other questions. Is there any other question or?
So I think for the next workshop, I don't know, we don't have a date. It's gonna be several months down the line. I don't know.
Just until we get that.
Till we get the counts, till we start to put our heads together and see what everything looks like. So probably toward the end of the summer, I would say.
And I just want to clarify, when I'm talking Lucerne, it's again, it is outside the scope a little bit because you have a circle around the neighborhood. But the big problem with Lucerne for safety of kids is from Inns to Duquesne.
Duquesne, yeah.
That is and especially because it squeezes at one moment and then opens up.
Right.
But there's cars parked along all the way, and then you have dotted lines around the whole street. so people, they feel like they can do all sorts of things. It's that whole everything.
Oh, you can't leave.
But that's, the traffic data we will get will give us a good sense of, you know, of the amount of traffic that is on Higuera, say, Hayden, right, or west of Hayden. How many turn left on Lucerne? And of those, how many turn right on Ince? Or how many continued straight to, assuming to Cape?
And that, again, we talked about post-COVID. It used to be every single day we walk.
Yeah.
Now it's like Wednesdays and usually Tuesdays and Thursdays, but Mondays and Fridays tend to be okay.
And like somebody mentioned, it's a little bit, the morning rush is a little later in the day, and the afternoon rush tends to end a little earlier than it used to. Like
Wednesdays always.
That's, and you know, and who knows, maybe Amazon or one of the big employers is like, it's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday workout.
Amazon will change that, right?
Yeah.
Like everybody
So
says.
that's the new reality.
It's coming back.
All right, I'm gonna stop the meeting again. There's a website, if you go on our website, culvercity.org/traffic engineering, you'll see a kind of like an accordion thing that says our list of projects or project websites. This project is on there. If I could get this to work, I would show you, but I sent out the link to Beth.
Everyone
The meeting,
in the bulletin.
the meeting recording will be posted. All of our, you know, reports and everything regarding the project will be posted.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you all for coming.
I kind of noted that in the email blast and such that the